Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. How about you?
Just fine, thank you.
Good.
Oops. So I'm just going to get here ready. I don't know how many people come, but I have to open my PowerPoint and we'll see. Maybe it's just the two of us. Why not? You can give me on my PowerPoint then. I will not be looking. I know you are muted. And so I'm looking at my PowerPoint. If you feel like speaking, then please don't forget to unmute yourself.
And do you know how many people signed up for this event?
No idea. I know Dr. Jay wanted to come, but she is in interviews all day long, so she will not be here. Maybe Tim, maybe Maritza. I'm not sure. Anyway, I have a lot of questions, so I'm sure we will not run out of questions. And so in the future, I'd like to actually help the International Student Office with those presentations for just for international students, so that they are aware, kind of like a training, because I just think it's possible that many students are not aware of those issues because they come from different countries, and they might they might have trouble talking about it. So if you some feedback on my presentation, I would appreciate it. I'm sure the international students will benefit from that as well. So let's see, how is everybody doing? Everybody is just fine, probably. I'm sure you have lunch or something to do that you have to do at 12. I really appreciate that you came to my presentation, and please feel free to unmute yourself and to speak anytime. I might call on you to see if you feel like answering a question. If you don't, that's fine too. If nobody wants to answer a question, I might jump in myself and answer the question myself. That is sometimes the case when we teach. When students don't feel like talking, we have to answer our own questions. But I'm sure your mouth is full with delicious lunch right now. I will just let all people in. And let's see if I'm sharing my PowerPoint. Hi, Maritza. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Isabella.
I was gonna say, if you want to make me a co-host, and I can manage whoever comes in the room. That way you don't have to worry about
that is so awesome. You're the nicest. Let me make you the co-host.
Okay.
I think I hope I did it right. I hope you're there.
Yes, I see it. Okay, so now I'll see all the people that are in, and I can let you know. Like, I'll monitor the chat too. Yeah. So if there's questions, that way you can just focus on presenting, and then
excellent. Thank you.
I'll help with everything else.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So let's see. So I'd like to have a short discussion with all of you about international students' mental health. It doesn't pertain only to international students. However, we might have a little more difficulty with international students talking about it. And I hope you will help me come up with some more ideas and suggestions that I can use with international students in the future. So let's see, my name is Anna Glapa-Grossklag, and I usually teach ESL. Sometimes I help out in linguistics. Sometimes I help out in the international students office. So let's see, the goal of today's discussion is to learn more about mental illness and how to help, well, you as a student become more comfortable talking openly about them. We'll discuss the stigma surrounding mental health and what we can do to change attitudes. So I'd like to ask with some basic questions about who we all are. And since we don't have a lot of people, I'm going to just ask anybody who would like to answer one of these questions to jump in. Maybe Maritza will text somebody at some point and ask them if they want to participate in the discussion. Okay, oops. So what are your hopes and concerns for your family, community, and or the country in general, not only mental health? What are your hopes? For example, I can say for myself, I certainly hope that we all stay healthy despite COVID, and that we're able to pursue our goals and our interests, that we don't have to go to the doctor, and that we don't come up with some major disease that we have to concentrate on healing and treating. And so that is pretty much for me. How about you, Mike?
Thanks for asking. And I look at this question a little different. I sit on the board of directors of the Child and Family Center here in Santa Clarita. And the biggest problem that we see, or I should say myself, that I grapple with is the funding for this disease or this problem that we have, this mental health, is not there. And we have so many people that we have to turn down, and they just can't get the services. So I'm just wondering, for our community, our county here, what we can do to generate interest in the government so that they will, finance this horrible problem.
That is so wonderful. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate all you do for mental health. Certainly, without money, it's very hard to proceed with any project. How about you, Maritza? What could you say about your hopes and concerns?
Well, hopes for sure is that we continue to open up on campus, and the whole COVID thing kind of slowly starts going away. So I know, at least for our international students, not only do we miss them on campus, but I know a lot of students miss just being in the classroom, being able to interact with other people. I mean, that's similar with family. It's like I haven't been able to travel to see family. I only maybe seen my parents when we all got vaccinated. Now my sister's finally getting vaccinated. So my hopes definitely is that things continue to open up and we can go back to a more normal, even though I think some things will never change. I think Zoom will be with us for a long time, but at least for family, community, country, that we can all kind of gather more like we used to, so we can have that community in person. Oh, you're muted.
Very true, very true. And I have always admired your commitment to biking, right? So you do definitely take care of your health, as everybody else in the International Student Office. I always see a lot of pictures every weekend who did what in terms of exercising. How about you, Sharon? Would you like to answer any of those questions? That's just fine, Sharon. If you are busy right now, just listening in, that's perfectly fine. How about you, Isabella? Do you feel, Isabella, like answering question number 2 or 3, maybe?
Yeah, I could answer. I have a different perspective, as I am also a student. I started here in my first year, so I've never actually had the experience of class on campus. I mean, I would say with sense of purpose or duty, a lot of that is about helping the world for me. I want to help the community. I want to reach out and bring people. I mean, I work with ISP with Maritza, so I want to bring people because I love my experience with the school. So my whole purpose is about helping other people find what makes them excited, what makes them tick, and giving them the capability to do that. I think this school has done wonders for that for me. And so I think that it's a huge part of how I like to spend my time.
That is certainly very important to have somebody like you with your personality on board. I would say that that's certainly something that I would describe you as a person who is very friendly, very open, very cheerful. And so I think you're not afraid to speak up, to talk about any topics. And so it's very important to have you on our team, especially for those students who don't know where to start a conversation about how they're feeling. Thank you so much, Isabella, for your reply. So here's a question to ponder. What community factors can impact mental health? I have some possible answers here. The question that I am not asking is what school, what college factors can impact our students' mental health. How do you see this? Where do you see the potential factors that could influence our international students' mental health? Anybody feels like jumping in, please go ahead. As is it, So in terms of a community, I certainly see one of the factors could be housing. Maybe our students do not have an ideal living situation, maybe because it's far, maybe because it's too close, maybe they would like to be more downtown, maybe they would like to be on the other side of the town. It's hard to make everybody happy, but definitely their housing situation could make them feel for some reason sad. What do you consider an important topic to ask our students about? Hey, how is your neighborhood maybe? How is your, I don't want to say alcohol use. Hey, have you been drinking? So that would be one of the questions that we probably do not want to ask. So what question would you guys ask? How about Mike?
I would probably ask what is about communication. I think, coming from a different country, I think that might be one of the most difficult things to be able to communicate with the new community here. And that's my concern.
Very true. That's correct. Communication can be very hard to interpret. We sometimes do not know how to interpret the reply, whether it's a positive one or negative one. And many people do tend to interpret everything in a negative way, looking for the danger, the looming danger somewhere. And those people would be definitely very vulnerable to the insecurities of not knowing how to connect the language with American culture. How about you, Maritza? I see you unmuted yourself.
Yes, I was going to say, because I saw food insecurity, and I thought about another aspect, which connects to cultural norms as well. Because I studied in Spain for a year, a long time ago in my undergrad. But I remember that what I missed the most was like my mom's food. And so that's a different kind of, like, I feel like insecurity. It's not just knowing where your next food's coming from, but not having that comfort food that you might need in certain times, like when you're sick or maybe during finals or something that you can't really cook for yourself. So one of the things that when I was living abroad, it was like I went on this mad hunt to find tortillas, and I was like, there's no, like, they're so expensive. They were like precious. So we only had tacos like a couple times during my whole year there because they were so expensive. But that's something that it would be, I think, good for us to know when students are coming in, like where they're coming from. So because I always say, like, LA is such a, it's got its immigrant pockets. So you can find Chinese food from this region in China that's, northern, southern. So I think guiding students on where you can find your comfort food is something that we can do on our part in our office, and getting to know our students. That's something that definitely it's for the future. And I mean, I think now some of our students I know, because I'm also a bit of a foodie, so I guide them to the places that I know. But that's one thing that popped in my mind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marisa, for your answer. That is so true about the food from our childhood. We feel like finally who we are. I am a person who eats tortillas, and I just have to eat that strange food every day. They want me to change my personality. So, Isabella, how about you? You're going through that currently. Is the food so different for you? Or maybe would another question be a question that you would like somebody to ask you?
I'm kind of lucky because I've lived here for 7 years, give or take. So I kind of know the area at least a little bit. And I'm from Canada, so it's not like a huge culture shock. But I think related to housing, I know currently I'm in a pretty comfortable place housing wise, but I know I haven't always been. I think a question that would be really good for me is like, are you safe and are you comfortable? Do you feel like you have space to do work? Do you feel like you're in a I guess a studious environment? I know I've lived in places where I've had to just like the school I went to before I came to COC, I lived with people who I didn't like and who spent a lot of time partying and talking loudly, so I couldn't get anything done in my apartment. I had to find like coffee shops to work in and things like that. So I think that would be an important question, is making sure that students are feel safe and or comfortable enough in their work environment to actually do what they need to.
Thank you so much, Isabella. And welcome our director, Mr. Tim Honadel. So just to update you a little bit here on what we are talking about is what questions we could potentially ask our students in order to maybe initiate this conversation. Hey, how are you feeling? So you have certainly a lot of experience. You are there in the office every single day answering every single question. What do you feel is important to ask our students?
Well, one of the things that we find is quite often students won't reveal their true feelings. They're ashamed of the fact that they're feeling depressed or out of control. Usually it comes up in either anger. So there may be something's not going right. They might not have done well on a quiz or something. They'll come in and be very angry about a professor's entire quality of instruction and the value the class may have and even why it's included in the major. And so I get a lot of conversations like that. But mostly students hide from their feelings about this. So drawing these kind of things out really comes from is helpful when it comes from the person who's not in my position as the authority figure, but more in the position of a professor, or sometimes we get that with our counselors. So that's really the time where these kind of questions can be asked. And I usually note that what helps a lot is when you start your questions about sort of informational about what's going on at home. Where do you live? How many brothers and sisters do you have? And they'll start revealing things like that. And once that sort of that baseline is set, and then the opportunity for asking deeper questions like, where do you live? And is that working for you? Are you getting enough to eat? Are you struggling with language? Do you like going to the grocery store? Are people, friendly when you can't find something on the shelf there? How is that all working out for you? Are you getting enough exercise? So those are the kinds of questions that I'll ask to try to draw students out. One of the big, most important things about today's presentation is the fact that it's recorded. And the reason is because almost all stakeholders who really would want to learn about this probably won't take the time now, or they won't reveal themselves by attending now, but they will go watch it later. And so I really, I'm glad that we have this feature of being able to record Zoom meetings like that. So I hope that helps. I hope that's something I could add. I know I needed to just pop in and say hello and kind of make sure you knew how important this is in international students' lives, because, it's friends, family, and food, and they just don't have those three things as soon as they get off the airplane. And so it's really good to pay attention to this.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We certainly can learn a lot from you. And we should probably ask you as well, what shall I do? Where should I start? I think as a teacher, sometimes I see a student who is not dealing too well with something, and I do not know where to start the conversation. I will certainly come to your office next time. I will ask you, hey, what do you think I should do first? So generally, I have a lot of questions. I can certainly have about five sessions. We would like also to maybe think about what experiences in students' life or work or family has impact on their beliefs about mental health. So maybe students should ask themselves in their experience, how are mental health issues affecting young people in the schools? If you are a young person, how do mental health issues affect you and your peers? Maybe there should be somebody simply reading their replies instead of answering in person, just because not everybody might feel comfortable answering those questions in person, on camera being recorded. Does any of those questions make you think, make you say something, makes you comment on mental health?
I can speak on that.
Please.
I have pretty bad anxiety, so I've been going to a professional for a couple of years, and I find that a lot of my peers, some of my friends, have similar issues or depression or other. I mean, these are very pervasive issues that we see a lot right now, especially in college students. So I see that affecting schoolwork personally. Is that some days I just can't do it. Some days it just does not happen. I need to sit and decompress or get support or sit alone in a dark room. And I think that that's okay. But the problem with school is that it can give this feeling that you're not allowed to take breaks, that you have to get all your work done immediately, that that is actually more important than your mental health. And I think the important thing that I had to learn is that it's not. And I'll actually just do better in school if I give myself that space to allow for my mental health. And I think that that's something that can be very helpful. I came from a background of very, I guess, a very studious family. So if you weren't getting A's and everything, well, that's a problem. So I know how that can impact things, and I'm a huge perfectionist because of that. And it takes a lot of time to kind of go back and forth between trusting yourself and your own instincts and your own mindset and like actually getting your work done. I think there's a balance, and I think that the cultural background and just that feeling can have a huge impact on how you interact with your own mental health, especially if you don't know what's going on. I know I had no idea I had anxiety for like the longest time. And it changes everything when you know, but if you don't, you just feel like that's normal.
That is so good how you described anxiety so well. I think we have to point out to students that sometimes we are not aware of the fact that it's not normal to feel like that. It's normal. Yes, it's normal. Nothing is wrong with you, but you can feel better. You should feel better. You don't have to feel anxious. Very true. So let's look at another question that I have for you. This is an exercise, actually. So I'm going to ask you how you felt doing this exercise. So I'm asking you to raise your hand if you went to a doctor's appointment in the past year. Thank you, Mike and Maritza. You were admitted to a hospital for any reason over the past year? You raise your hand. No, all right. And you took any medication over the past year? How did it feel to answer this question in this group setting? That's my question to you. Did it feel okay to you? Are you used to raising your hands?
the question, at first I was hesitant, because I didn't know where you're going. But as far as medication, no, I broke my foot, so that's why I went to the doctor. No, I didn't take any medication or admitted to a hospital. But it is still uncomfortable, even in this small group of 6 people, to answer these questions.
Very true. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, Maritza, please.
I'd say for these are general. So I was like, oh, well, yeah, I can tell I've been to the doctor. I just have I need new glasses. So I had to go to the doctor's appointment for new glasses, things that are very routine, dentist appointment. But then I also started thinking about the last question, how did it make you feel? And it's like, well, I know not everyone has access to these services. So, I've had the vaccine and all this that I get through work now that or before it was through maybe my parents' work that I've been able to access these services. And I know that I have family that can't access services in the US. So to me, it's like, I'm grateful for it, but I also sometimes feel like, you have to acknowledge that privilege of like, I have it, so I have to use it because I'm like, I might as well keep myself healthy if I have the option to.
Yes, that's right. I keep forgetting to unmute myself. Thank you, Maritza. So definitely not having insurance is something that would make somebody maybe not admit that they didn't go to a doctor. Like Mike said, I don't know where you were going with those questions. I didn't know at first. So it made me hesitant. So imagine our students, like, them those questions, they will be like, why? Isn't that a private question? Right? So how we ask this question is very important as well. Many students would probably feel afraid to answer those questions. They would want to look good, and answering those questions truthfully might make them look bad. Now, if we were to ask you to raise your hand, but you don't need to raise your hand. If you saw a mental health professional over the past year, and if you took any psychiatric medications over the past year, how would that make you feel?
I mean, I kind of admitted to going to a mental health professional over the past year. I'm pretty open about it, but I know most people are not. So I'm the outlier, I think. And I probably wouldn't say if I took any psychiatric medications, honestly. I'm not, but I probably wouldn't, honestly.
I wanted to add that I
Please.
recently read that the newer generations are more open about mental health and how to maintain mental health and what it means to not have a good mental health in the moment, but I feel like I grew up when if you went to a mental health professional, then you were, crazy or you needed to take medication, then it's like there's definitely something wrong with you. And based on my upbringing, it was like that would be a hard question to answer, just because you're like, well, I don't want to admit that I'm crazy. Like, I don't know what repercussions admitting you're crazy will have in work or social settings. And even though it's more open now, it's like you're still being with your same. Because I think a lot of my friends are in a similar boat or in similar situations where we grew up with similar backgrounds. So I'd be like, well, it's something you don't normally admit. But I'm exploring more of the health, mental health, and how to, do yoga, breathing, all this stuff I've actually also seen a mental health professional, just because I was like, it's part of talking to someone about how to deal with your brain, how you're processing things. It's as simple as that, not as like, oh, well, they're off the deep end. You don't have to get off the deep end to see a mental professional, which I think that's something that's changing in society.
That is very true. I'm glad you answered those questions so honestly, and you tackled a few fears out there. And I'm so glad, Isabella, you're a clear example of a student who openly talks about it. So it is possible, but as you said, probably most people don't feel comfortable, although both of you mentioned young people are more comfortable. Now, on the other side of that scale is our international students. So I'm sure we will still discuss why international students would have trouble talking about mental health. I would like to go to next slide. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Jai Cheng-Levine. She's the Dean of International Student Program and Student Services. And so welcome. She's an expert on international students, have been probably an international student at some point in her life as well. So Dr. Would you feel comfortable answering any of those questions? Oh, I'm so sorry. You probably will not be able to answer those questions. They refer to the previous questions. But just for you, I'm going to put out there a set of new questions. Let's take a moment to think about what a person experiencing a mental illness looks like. What image pops into your head? Tell us about the person. What are they wearing? How old are they? What are they doing? And how do the media portray it? And I would like to talk here about stereotypes, our own internal stereotypes, stereotypes in the media, and the stigma connected with it. Dr. Cheng-Levine, would you be so kind to answer one of those questions for us?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Sorry, I was having computer issues. No sounds. Thank you. Apologies. And because bias, right? And then especially working with international students, we always have to check our own implicit bias. And in this case, when we drive down the street or anywhere that we go, I just visited my daughter in Oakland area. And unfortunately in that area, you have people with mental health issues that create a large homeless population. And what is a person experiencing? What do they look like? First thing, right or wrong, my implicit bias is seeing people talking to themselves on the street. Right there, that's my answer. Okay, I feel so bad. This person must have suffering some kind of mental illness, and then it's not properly taken care of because the society still doesn't have that infrastructure yet. Usually, what are they? Just question number one. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. Would anybody feel comfortable answering any of those questions, or did they maybe remind you of something you asked, a situation, or your reaction maybe with one of the questions? If not, that's okay. We can move on to the next question.
Something that when you put the media, something that came to mind immediately when I saw the media was that straitjacket that it's like you see over and over in movies and shows, and mostly now in older movies, but that's still something that's very like you're going to be taken away in a straitjacket because you're either a danger to yourself or to others. And so that's one of the things that popped into my head right away.
And unfortunately, I think it's not all ages, right? Like what Marisa was talking about, it seems in the past we see more of the images more, it seems to be with older people, but now, but if you look at the reality of it, especially our younger population suffer, isolation, loneliness, and drug abuse. All these have led to our population. It seems to me, image-wise, when I see it becomes younger and younger in so many ways.
Now I think another thing is we're also seeing people that tend to be happy, like celebrities, for Robin Williams, or committed suicide. Anthony Bourdain, who was one of my kind of like food heroes. And also it's like, you think these people have made it. They have the best of the best, and yet they're still wanted to end their lives. So that's like the media now is portraying, like, what does mental illness looks like? Well, it looks like someone that could be happy. Like, you just don't know.
That is so true. Thank you so much, Maritza. There is no way of telling from the outside very often. And as you said, I like to repeat, and they often smile. They often smile because they don't want people to know that they feel desperate inside. Next slide. What would the biggest consequence for your family of be? Oh, I deleted one word here. So sorry. For your family be of someone, or having someone with a mental illness. How long would it take them, this person in your family? How long would it take them to seek mental health, to finally admit, hey, I need to go to a specialist with that. I need to see if maybe there's some medicine that could help me. And what would keep them from seeking treatment earlier? What would motivate them to seek treatment?
I have a quick thing on that. I was listening to a podcast on eating disorders this morning. It takes, on average, about 11.6 years for someone with an eating disorder to go and get treatment, which is a wild number to me. But it makes sense because a lot of that is societally accepted. And a lot of that is all hidden. We're talking about how mental health is often hidden from everyone around us. So if you don't know that that's happening, I mean, I didn't know I had anxiety. I've had it my whole life. I didn't know until like literally like maybe a year ago at most. So it takes a very long time, and I think some families don't want to deal with the possibility of it affecting their kind of like outward reputation. I know my extended family is definitely like that. So it can definitely impact the way that the younger people growing up are, or the older people who have these mental illnesses who never got treatment because they lived in that family and that was the expectation.
And if you're from Asian family, like Chinese, Taiwanese especially, what do you mean by mental illness? We don't have those. No, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So the road to in terms of we see it in our students, and Anna, you've been so wonderful working closely with our students coming here may have limited language ability. We have one Japanese students. We know he was challenged in many ways, but we accepted him, and then he was here, and then he ended up thriving. And then before he came, his mom was really worried to death because of he's on the spectrum. So in that sense, it's not mental illness, but in many ways, right? If you look at his behavior walking down on our campus, for example, he walk on the campus, and I can sense students looking at funny. Right, and then because he's from Asian community, in some ways, he's international students. I feel, of course, more close to him, and I want to ensure that we do everything we can to make sure that he complete his academic journey here. So, but if you look at when we talk with his mom, the idea of potentially getting him more help, it's just not there. The mom didn't think he would need any additional help. We would like to introduce him to DSPS. Didn't think that was needed. So in some ways, 11 and a half years is really shocking, Isabella, and I'm glad that you were able to give us that statistic. But in some cultures, I think if we aggregate that data, if we can, some culture, I think, will even be longer, and people may never be kind of brought to light in terms of the help they need with the mental illness that they're suffering.
Thank you, Dr. Chenklevine. I'm so happy that you're the dean of the international students, because you are the friendliest faculty at the college. You always laugh, you always smile, you have so much energy. You talk to every single person who comes to your office, and you take time to ask them personal questions. Hey, how are you doing? And this is so true that many of the students cannot answer those questions. I would love to have maybe some more of those workshops where students can come and listen. They don't have to turn on the camera. They don't have to use the microphone. Just come and listen and see what other people talk about in terms of mental health. Maybe they can text us a question without being recognized who the question comes from. So thank you so much for your efforts to support international students in this area. I would like to turn to the next slide. What does stigma mean to you, and how would stigma affect your family or friends? Dr. J kind of started answering this question by telling us about the parents. I think if many of our international students might be afraid that, hey, what if they say I'm crazy? What if my government will know that I'm crazy? What if my neighbors and everybody knows that I'm crazy? I will never get a job. No, I cannot admit to any craziness. So certainly stigma is a big word, and they would do anything to avoid being labeled as the crazy person. So crazy is a big word. However, often students are call themselves use name. They might have heard from insensitive individuals in their childhood. They repeat what they have heard until somebody makes them aware, hey, it's not that crazy in America. There are many celebrities, like Maritza mentioned, who admit to having a mental illness. So those are some of the additional things that students might feel that we talk about their mental health. So what slang terms are used to describe mental illnesses? Why do we have such negative images about mental illness? How do you think stigma is perpetuated? How can diagnosis or labels reinforce the stigma? I think Dr. J has probably a lot of knowledge about the other countries. Are there some slang terms in the languages you know, and everybody else that people use to talk about those people?
And I think number 4 is so important, right? I think part of the reason the parent did not want the students to receive the wonderful services that we have on campus. Specifically, she does not want to reinforce that kind of label on her child. And then I think that's culturally, I think Asia, in many countries that I travel to, I would have parents come up to me and say, well, my daughter is challenged in this ways. I said, we are an institution that pride ourselves on inclusiveness, equity, especially comes to international education. And we're working really hard to do that, to be as inclusive as possible. And that's part of the reason the colleges support a relatively large staff at ISP to be able to help the students. But it's very difficult to convey to the parents our sincerity of helping all the students, because in their mind they just have not experienced that. They have this dream, perhaps they can send their kids to us and then they will get better services. They want to do that, but they also are afraid that if they don't understand the laws and regulations in the United States when they come to mental health, because they don't understand it, they cannot see their kids and they're not close to them. So in that sense, would they be able to continuously to be able to protect their parents of their kids? So the thousands of miles away across so many oceans coming. So in that sense, regardless how what the terms, the slangs are used to describe people with mental health concerns, I think that the negative images there is still there is still very strong. And for example, I don't know if you guys, I rarely watch TV, but for some reason I got hooked on Big Bang Theory, right? So if you look at Sheldon, right, and then I appreciate shows like that because people usually are extremely smart in so many ways. They just socially, we are not used to, we don't want to adjust our behavior standards to people with needs. So in some ways, we are really far away from fostering a learning environment that's truly inclusive because we try so hard with our physical environment because ADA, right? If we don't, we get sued. So physical environment wise, we are quick, we do it, we modify it. But what about the implicit biases or non-inclusive pedagogical practices for our students who don't feel comfortable in the classroom, right? We can, this physical disability you can see. The worst part, like what Isabella was saying there, I was saying there, and then what Marisa was saying there, mental illness, you can't see. I read it somewhere about people who have the most challenges, in terms of mental health. They actually post the most happy pictures on Facebook.
That is certainly true. Thank you so much for mentioning good ideas as well. I wonder if we could maybe watch movies that have a character or two who is trying to deal with their environment and their trouble, their learning problems, their mood problems, and discuss it. That would be also a good and helpful activity probably for our students. I think here fear, that which is different, is basically summarizes what Dr. J said in terms of parents and students. It's important to pay attention to that. Now, there are many expressions. For example, if somebody said to you, "Oh, it could be worse. Just deal with it. Snap out of it. Everyone feels that way sometimes. We have all been there. You've got to pull yourself together. Maybe try thinking happier thoughts." How does it make you feel?
I want to hear from others.
I think it depends on the person. Isabella, would you like to answer?
Yeah, it makes me want to hit someone. It's just, it makes you feel as though like your feelings aren't valid, and that's like you should shut up and stop talking about it.
Exactly. Right.
And I think sometimes we're all very good intention. Like number 5, we have all been there. No experience is universal, other than the idea, the sense of happiness, right? You other than that, in terms of the pain level, everyone has different tolerance to pain, physical pain and mental illness experiences. I think number 5, sometimes the most well-intended message is the most hurtful because you make that person who is currently suffering as if you know what they're going through, you may or may not. So I think sometimes empathetic versus sympathetic, right? We were empathetic, it is we don't try to pretend we know exactly what they're going through. because as you know, we all have go through different days in lives and up and downs. And for me personally, that's just me personally. When people say, "Oh, we are being there," I was like, "So my experience that I just experienced yesterday shouldn't matter then, right?" It's with all good intention. And I think sometimes is the worst part of it. And number three, snap out of it. Of course, we would all love to say that, but if they can't, they would have.
Yeah.
That's usually how that it took a while, right? Just deal with it. If they could, they would have. This is a start having to tell myself all these. When sometimes no, I have a teenager, well not teenager, I have a 20-year-old at home, and he did something funky, and I was about to say something. I was like, okay, if he could, he probably would have. So instead of having this quick snippet of like, I don't know, seasoned sayings that perhaps sometimes we come backwards. 5, 3, 2, 1 is that really what we want to say to people? And oftentimes I found that I call myself after I come backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I stop talking to tell people what to do.
That's right. That's right. That is so true. And one has to have a thick skin and to take all of those expressions. And I think it might be true also that our students don't always understand the meaning of these expressions, and they wonder if it's them and their inability to understand the intention of the person, or is there something with this comment? So, please. Mhm.
Oh, I was saying, I feel like I've heard these a lot, these phrases, and yeah, you hear them a lot, even though they don't make you feel good. They don't always help. If they do, then I mean, great if you figured out how to do that. But they don't always help. But then you hear them so often, then you end up saying them to yourself. So that's the thing that, like, it could be worse. Like, I know I've said that. I'm like, just deal with it, snap out of it. Like, these are all things that I'm like, I know. It's like, just get on with it. Let's go. And I think it's like you get stuck in this loop where you aren't validating your own feelings. And it's important to kind of realize when that's happening. So sometimes you just need to feel what you're feeling, and then eventually it'll kind of lift, I think, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes sense. I think it's very smart, Maritza, to say you have to be your best friend. You shouldn't tell things that your enemy, that somebody hates you, which tell you just, or somebody simply well-meant person. If you are your best friend, you should support yourself. You should keep telling yourself positive, motivational phrases that help you. Now, here are some more careful, comfortable things to say. If our students knew those, if they memorized them, if there was simply a memorize exercise for them for those phrases, I think they could even say it to one to another, to each other. I think that would already help respect our feelings and emotions. How do they make you feel?
I think these are like this more, sometimes we just don't know what to do and what to say. I think those are really helpful, because I think things like, I'm sorry to hear that, it must be tough. It's a lot better than, we all have been there. Well, it could be worse. I can see the correlation between the previous page, that there are things that we shouldn't be saying anymore. And then we replace with those, I'm here for you when you need me. Sometimes that's just all people need, right? And or just to be willing to listen.
Exactly, very true. Thank you for saying that. I also think that sometimes students don't understand the meaning, whether it's positive or not. For example, students always ask me, if I say too hot, it's too hot. Is it a negative meaning or positive meaning? Because I like heat. Too hot is positive for me. So they are not sure about whether somebody means a phrase in a positive way or in a negative way. So they also need to be taught how to, what an expression, what emotional load an expression carries with it. I have 2 exercises. One is scenario 1. They're very short. You notice that your friend Jessica has sometimes detached and disengaged during the past few months. She rarely comes to book club, and when she does, she doesn't say much. You're concerned about her. You ask her when you're alone if she's okay, and she says she's been really depressed lately. What do you say?
Do you want my cookie?
You're the best. I would cry. That is so
You have my new
kind.
song that I treasure. I don't share with anybody.
Oh,
I
yeah.
honestly wouldn't know. I just because it's just that being really. I mean, if people will actually come out and tell us they're depressed, actually, there's hope. I think the worst kind is this. Oh no, we're fine. But you know, right? You know something is wrong. Your instinct. You're human beings. You connect with people, so you know that they are not doing well. And so if Jessica is willing to tell me that she is being really depressed, then I would say, let me know how I can help, and I'm here for you. Just let me know. And I don't think I would say that much more. Unless, do you want to talk about it? Do you want after this, let's go grab coffee? I will listen. They think they know that I will listen. I'm not trying to fix them, right? What people don't need is people to fix them. But we've been educators, we like to fix people, so I guess. So I think what people in that situation, what they need is not for you to fix them, it's for you to listen. And so I think it might be helpful, say, so sorry to hear that. Can you imagine what you're going through? It must be tough. Would you like to get a coffee? And then I want to listen. I think if we reassure them, when we go and get coffee, Jai will stop talking. And I'll listen. I think that might be reassuring. That's what I would do.
Very true. Thank you so much, Dr. J. I also have a scenario 2, which is also similar. And some examples was to say, but I don't want to take too much of your time. We're almost done with our presentation. So scenario number 2, your best friend your best friend from college comes over and says that he hasn't been feeling well lately. He says he has been diagnosed with anxiety, and sometimes it feels like his heart is pounding so hard, he feels like he's having a heart attack. What do you say? How can you, as a friend, make this conversation easier?
I personally like to use the phrase, I hear you. I like being able to sit there and be like, yeah, I hear you. Because it's a little different than I understand. Because, I mean, I've been here, but it kind of goes past the understanding to like, I'm listening and I'm here to hear what you have to say. Do you want to continue to talk about it? I really like Dr. J's I want to listen. I think that's a great way to make this easy, because a lot of people feel like they're burdening you with that information. So encouraging them that you're not, and everything is like you are there for them, like truly wholeheartedly. I think that's really important.
That is such a good point. Thank you so much. Yes, definitely insist, be persistent, follow up on your first question. How are you feeling today? And next day again, how are you feeling today? And again, keep asking, keep persisting, because they don't want to be as a burden, as Isabella said. Very true. So I have some final questions for us. This is the last slide. What does it mean to get better from mental health problems? And is it even possible? If there was one message you could give the public about mental illness, what would it be? And what else can I do? Can we do?
These are really tough questions. Number one, I really don't know. I honestly don't know. One message I would say, recognize it, recognize it's there, and don't trivialize it, right? I think the worst thing is always when the problem is so big for you, but for some others may not be so big, they trivialize it. I have to say that one thing I really appreciate about our chancellor, right? She's oversees $100 million institution and all this and that. And then when I went to say, I need $3,000 to do the bluebird restoration project, right? How do I find money? So for her, this is such a small project, but she had never made me feel my project small because the project is as big as what is for me. So from that perspective, right, something similar with the mental health. For me, that might be nothing trivial, why you bother by that, but for some, that's huge for them. So if we look at someone has to take the regular lunch hours or their schedule gets set off. For me, I eat whatever, right? So if that were the case, then I shouldn't trivialize their need to have to eat at noon. But I mean, it's not, even though it's not the mental health side of it, but I use that as a parallel example. I constantly have to remind myself that it may not be important to me, but it's important to them. And I think that's the approach now as I grow older. I try to be better because I used to, why are you worried about that? It doesn't make sense you're worrying about it. But I'm trying to be better, right? I mean, and I'm the public in a sense to myself. My public self in many ways has to be a lot more caring in sense of, and then learning from my public self to really examine my private self about. So, that's your implicit bias, Shai. Snap out of it. Your implicit bias. I would like to hear what others, what else that you think we can do.
I wanted to add a little about that. The getting better, I think, is knowing that mental health is part of a whole rounded health. Like it's not separate from I need oxygen, I need water, I need to go walk, I need to eat. It's like mental health is everything. It's connected. It's who you are. But the other thing is, like, at least with me and my health, mental health professional, it's like I feel like they lured me in because I really just wanted to lose weight. But they're the ones that taught me that mental health is connected to body health. It's connected to everything else. So if you're anxious or if you're depressed, then you're not going to eat right. You're not going to work out. You're not going to do it. You're not going to lose weight. So I was like, that I think shifted the mentality for me on mental health and seeking mental health. It's like they can help you with the tools you need to develop yourself in order to figure out how to help yourself out of whatever mental health illness you have. So I think the getting better is understanding what your situation is and getting the tools to help yourself out of it.
Very smart, Dr. J and Maritza. I'm always impressed with the ladies I have the honor to work with and the students that I have the honor to work with. Isabella, would you like to add to this discussion?
I echo exactly what Maritza was saying. That's literally exactly how I feel. I think if I had to give a message to the public about mental illness, it's such a new field still. We still don't know very much about it, but it is just as important as physical health. And as we have doctors for physical health, we have mental health professionals for mental health. And I think I would just encourage the public to have an open mind, because a lot of the things we understand about physical health were crazy 100 years ago. So the more that we understand about mental health, the less the stigma will be, but it involves a community effort.
I love your encouragement, Isabella. I think the parents who hear this message will maybe think twice about their advice to their children here in America. And so we will try more to learn ourselves in the future and have more of these discussions. thank you so much for coming over and discussing this matter with us. I'm always honored to hear what you have to say. You are amazing ladies in the International Student Services Program, and I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for
Thank you.
care so much about our students. Well, it's good to see you. Thank
Good to
you.
see you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.